Okay, so welcome to everybody. It's Monday webinar time. Remember, this is our watch list. This is what we're looking to trade this week. This is what we're looking to do this week. And we have lots to talk about. So let's get right down to it. Again, welcome to everybody. We're super happy to have you with us. And I'm happy to talk about some currencies again. It's been a nice, restful weekend, which I needed. And I'm excited to get back to it all. Okay, so one thing, remember, if you go to the website and you click on Start, and I'll take you to the About page, that will get you plugged in with a free trial if you're interested in seeing how we're actually going to follow through with some of these trades this week. So just have a peek at that. Let me know if you have any questions, any details about any of that. Next item is we've got a decent bit of news this week, but it's nothing too wild and crazy. You know, retail sales for the U.S., not a huge crazy one. We do have Draghi speaking on Thursday at the Financial Forum situation out there. It could be a crazy move or it could be anything. We have to be ready for that. Friday, I don't know why I'm starting at the end of the week and working my way back, but I'm doing it. Wednesday, we have employment numbers for Australia. That's always interesting. We have some New Zealand news. We've got some decent stuff. So some nice little setups are in the works, and we don't have any like super wild and crazy news, but we do have a little bit of wild and crazy news, and so it's not going to be like what we saw last week where all the central banks just dove in headfirst and caused some of the biggest movement we've seen all year long. Well, not some of the biggest movement we've seen all year long. Okay, so that's what we have this week for all of that. Here's some of the pairs that I'm focused on. I'm looking at Euro dollar, Pound dollar, Dollar CAD, Aussie New Zealand, Aussie Yen, CAD Swiss franc. So let me just say a couple of details here. I've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of emails, things on Twitter and so on about some of the movement we've seen lately. You pretty much have to plan on about twice a year seeing some of the crazy movement that we've seen. We've talked about this a little bit. The first part of the summer we see some nice movement. May and June is typically a pretty high volatility time, and we always plan for that, and we look for massive breakouts during May and June. And then the next big movement can happen right after summer, although it hasn't been the case in at least a couple of years. Usually, at least in the last few years, we've had kind of that next big movement going right into the end of the year where everything just starts really moving, November, December. We saw that big movement actually happen right now, right at the end of summer, right after Labor Day. Everything has started to go crazy again, and so we've seen some really big movements. If you're strictly a breakout trader, then you do super well with this kind of movement. If you're breakout only, then you do really great on these kinds of big, wild, crazy movements, but you probably only do good 1 to 2 months out of the year, and the rest of the time you make lots of money during a few of these wild, volatile times, and then the rest of the time you're kind of giving it back or just maintaining and so on. And that was definitely, I've been through that quite a bit myself, where high volatility times I do great, and then the other 9 or 10 months out of the year I'm just getting nickeled and dimed to death, as we say, just losing a few pips here and a few pips there constantly. So this is one of those moments where we've seen some big movement, and it started some big movement, but it's also kind of finishing some big movements, and we're going to talk about what those are and how those targets have been reached as they pertain to some of these pairs. So again, it's kind of wild and crazy. If in our group we had a euro dollar trade that stopped us out, and then we've kind of just been waiting on some of these entries. We've taken a little bit here and there and waited for some of these big movements to calm down just a little bit. Because again, we have a great system that works 10 months out of the year, and we've got some really, really excellent setups coming up. We can always anticipate that pre-summer movement nice and easy, but the post-summer movement, like I said, could be right after summer, it could be right at the end of the year. It's kind of this 4-month question mark kind of time, and so we've seen some pretty big movements happening, and things will calm down and give us kind of our normal setups once again. So let's look at the euro dollar for a moment. Euro dollar has made some pretty crazy moves here. But once again, if you look at euro dollar if you look at it on a weekly chart, we've seen the high of this year. This started our pre-summer movement, by the way. We were shorting euro dollar from some of these highs up at 140. And so it's just been trickling and trickling and trickling. And we get down into the kind of the low 130s, which is where we were starting to take some entries, and it just made that last push. And so now the euro dollar is currently 1,000 pips off the yearly high, and it's also coming down into this 61.8 level. Now the euro dollar might find a little bit of support down here around 128.50, which is only 40 or 50 pips away from current price. But our big level is going to be around 127.50, which you can see there's been lots of support down here. That's also our 61.8%. Actually, it's just a tiny bit below our 61.8% fib level of the big move that the euro typically makes, which is 120 to 140. So we're going to start to find some nice opportunities to buy this dip on euro dollar, but I really don't want to short any more of this at the moment. We talked about this yesterday, at the end of last week, which was a nice little bear flag, because we do have a pretty wild movement of 200 pips right there. So to see this bear flag happen, no big surprise. We expected that, and hopefully some of you got into that. Very nice movement, but now we've left so many missed pivots up here. We have missed weekly pivots galore. I mean, more than I've ever seen. So our current weekly pivot is right up here around 130, right at 130 basically. Then we have another pivot up here that's around 132.50, and then we have another pivot, number 2, 134.60, and then we got another one up here, 135.50. So there's really a lot of missed pivots. Now I think getting up into the mid and even high 130s is going to be an absolute impossibility for the euro for a while, but it'll get back up there. It always does. But for the moment, I think we're headed into the mid 120s. But I don't know if we're going to get much below that. I think the euro is going to be able to kind of hold on here and hold these mid 120s. We're in the high 120s right now. We'll do some dipping down, and then there's going to start to be some nice recoveries. So what we're going to be watching for on this euro dollar is some nice setups to get long, because right now, if you look at euro dollar, 1 hour chart is like setting records now. We're at 370 plus bars on the 1 hour chart, and the 4 hour chart is about 200 and almost 250 bars. So currently, euro dollar stands at an extremely oversold situation. Now, what we have to wait for on euro dollar is for things to calm down a little bit. This bear flag will play out for a little bit longer. But we need to wait for some setup, so like a double bottom or a falling wedge or something like that. And right now, actually, we have a pretty fantastic falling wedge in the works. If that high holds pretty well, and we do something like this, and we do something along these lines, depending on how much lower it goes, it should head lower, and it should kind of give us a little bit of a less kind of crazy looking angle. But we're definitely going to have a nice little falling wedge to trade on this euro dollar, and our next move is definitely going to be to get long euro dollar. But we have to get to that setup first, and that will probably come towards the end of this week if I had to take a wild guess. So that's what I'm looking for on euro dollar for the moment. I'm just looking for it to kind of bottom out. We know that 127.50 is going to be a very, very likely to get hit very, very soon kind of level. But I think there's going to be some consolidation and craziness. But as we get down into that 12800 area, 90 or so pips below current price, things start to get really interesting from there, and we can start getting some big buys on euro dollar. So just plan on that, and we'll have those details coming. Next one, so I'm not just running down every pair here. Next one I'm looking at is pound dollar. This is a great little setup. Pound dollar has made a pretty nice run down. It is getting a little extended on the 1 hour chart, but surprisingly that's kind of it as far as candlesticks go. So we're about 200 bars out on the 4 hour chart, excuse me. And the 1 hour is not really that far. It's only it's only 117 or 18. So pound dollar is definitely making some nice little movements here, and should start to bottom out just a little bit. There we go. We've left, I think we only have one gap currently on pound dollar. But this is a really, really good looking setup. I like this one quite a bit. You can see that it's made these big wild moves. The pound dollar has just dropped more in the same period of time than it has in like the past 100 years. So the pound dollar is setting major records. And remember, records are set, but they're also broken. and so this pound dollar could continue moving down a bit more, but it is definitely getting in a very overextended area. One place that I'm looking for some pretty excellent support at is just right at 160. We know 160 is a very good typical level. It also happens to be from this fairly large movement right here of about 2,300 pips. 160 happens to be the 50% fib, so it's right at 160. I mean, 160 on the dot is our 50% fib. And that's also overlapped with some pretty nice, levels right there. 160 has been a pretty tough level, and I think it will continue to be a tough level. And so that's going to be a really nice spot to start looking at buying the dip on pound dollar, because we now on this pair as well have quite a few missed weekly pivot points. So I mean, just without scrolling back too far, we have 1, 2, 3. So at least we have 3 in sight. A couple of missed monthly pivots and so on. So the pound dollar is really an excellent setup, and I'm just kind of waiting for this one to bottom out a little bit as well. Of course, with movements like this, we'll look for opportunities for this to run up a little bit and trade some breakouts down, looking for kind of bear flag type situations like this. But I think the pound dollar is just going to kind of trickle. It's looking heavy. I'm not really going to try to short anything down into 160. I'm just going to let it hang around and work its way down there slowly, and then start looking for that breakout and that opportunity to trade it back up. And we're going to get it. We're going to get a nice double bottom or a nice falling wedge, one of the two. And pound dollar is going to be a really attractive buy, and even a buy and hold potentially. We definitely do want to get past the whole Scottish independence vote. That's really put a big kink into pound dollar, into pound anything pairs right now. So that's definitely got everyone on their toes. So pound dollar, euro dollar, looking for those to bottom out, slow down a little bit, and then we will look for some fantastic buying the dip opportunities on those. And we're going to get some really good ones. You can count on that. Dollar CAD, I've had a few dollar CAD pending orders, and as I look at the notes for group members, I don't see a current dollar CAD pending order. So anybody in the group, who is in dollar CAD right now, by the way, just out of curiosity? Who do we have currently long dollar CAD? I had some pending orders around 109.20 and 40, and then for some reason, I don't see them on the trade list, and I don't know why I would have gotten rid of that, but I don't see it on our current open trades, and I remember it being there, and I am currently in the trade myself. So anyway, I don't know, but it looks like several people got into it. I've gotten lots of emails this week saying great dollar CAD, everything's looking great. So apparently, it was there this morning. Okay, all right. Well, there you go. Okay. So if you're not in dollar CAD, which a lot of people in our group are currently long dollar CAD, I still think that this pair is going to make it up to, I personally think we're going to get a double top on dollar CAD. We have a perfect head and shoulders pattern, and this is the video that I have talked about over and over and over again. Here's our shoulder, here's our head, here's, I sent the video out last week, I've sent emails out about it. If you're not in it yet, don't sweat it too much, because our next move is going to be the break of this neckline, which is basically getting above the 110 area. You can see we're at about 109.80, so we're not far from 110. So getting above that could be our next move into getting long dollar CAD for those that are not yet in. And then to go back to my point that I was making there, I think we have a very easy target into 111, so an easy 100 pips. But I think we have an equally easy target into 112.50 and even potentially beyond. Remember, our head and shoulders pattern here has about a 350 pip neckline, and so that's going to put us, nicely up into about 113.50 almost. So the dollar CAD has lots of potential, and we are definitely holding on to this trade at least until 112.100, 112.50. So dollar CAD is looking great, and we'll be getting long in that above 110.100, or getting more long if for those that are not in it, and we'll be adding to our positions around that 110 area on upward. So dollar CAD is looking super great. I love anything buy long related, and should be super great. Okay, so that's dollar CAD above 110. Absolutely, positively, we are long to death. Okay, so let's talk about the Aussie, couple of Aussie pairs real quick here. Aussie New Zealand and Aussie Yen. Here's our Aussie New Zealand pair. I kind of missed the entry that I was looking for on this one, just because I simply wasn't at my charts in the middle of the night. But the break of this 112.45, this was on our watch list to get short Aussie New Zealand right around here. There wasn't a ton of profit potential before the 200 moving average, only about 45 pips, which is kind of one of the reasons I wasn't crazy gung-ho about it. But we still have some good potential on this 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart is now 235 bars out, and we still have a trend line that is unbroken, untested, and so on. So if we start getting on this Aussie New Zealand, definitely if we get below 111.90, we'll add some short positions to that. But we will most likely look for any opportunity to buy, or excuse me, to short the spike on this one. So if this runs up, hits the 200 moving average and runs up a little bit, we'll look for opportunities to get in and short that one on down. Remember, we have some nice missed pivots. Here's a weekly missed pivot, monthly, weekly, and daily, down between about 110.75 and 110.95. So, there's some good, at least a good 100 pips from the break of that level I just mentioned. Not to mention we have some nice daily and monthly and weekly pivots way down here as well. So I really like Aussie New Zealand a lot. I think this is a great trade. So we're gonna again look to short the spike or sell the break of this 111.90 area. So that one's looking super good. I'm going to be really careful about trading into yen strength, because I think we could see some major yen weakness, like carry trade style yen weakness. And so we could see that happen. The Aussie yen has just made this incredible run up. As you can see, the Aussie yen has done literally nothing for months and months and months. We had a little quick movement there for a couple of days and a week of interestingness here, and then the rest of it's been total garbage until we hit that low just randomly about almost mid-August. We hit this low, and then Aussie yen just runs up 450 pips, which has been so much more movement than it's done in probably a year and a half. So anyways, this one's on the list. It looks like we're going to end up with a nice little hanging man here on the 1-hour chart. It's looking pretty interesting. It's looking like a nice little mover. In this channel right here, it is pushing and running and testing and so on. If we get there's a couple of things I'm looking for right here. First of all, we have a pretty amazing looking 1-hour chart that's almost 400 bars out, which we don't see very often on 1-hour charts. So that's something to keep an eye on, number one. Number two is the 4-hour chart is kind of giving us a nice little setup here. One moment, guys. Let me just adjust something real quick here. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so back to this Aussie yen. Basically, what I'm looking for, I'm a little torn on this one. Ideally, I'd like to see it make one more push higher, and then we'll absolutely short the break of that trend line. Otherwise, we're probably just going to try to short this at the break of the trend line right here, which is going to put us, another 30 or so pips below current market price. But it gives us a pretty decent, medium-term kind of trade. Like I said, I don't want to mess around too much in getting, buying yen strength, because I don't think we're going to see a lot of it. But I do think there's a pretty easy 100 pips or so on some of these corrections. And so, the Aussie yen is definitely going to be one of those. I'd love to trade this down into 9,700, probably at the break of this low. But again, if it does make a bit of a push higher, then I'll be shorting it from those higher prices as well. So again, we're going to be keeping an eye on that. Should be a nice little move coming up. So that's Aussie yen. Again, higher would be better, but we'll sell the break as well. But definitely would like to see that run just a little bit higher. Last but not least, one that I'm liking quite a bit here is the CAD. Actually, I forgot to put in the euro pound, so there's actually another one in here besides. We'll talk about euro pound in just a moment. CAD Swiss franc, which is, where is my CAD Swiss franc? I think I just moved everything on my charts. There we go. CAD Swiss franc is a super interesting looking little bear or bull flag. So we've had this nice move up about 175 pips and then this great consolidation. Now when we're in between things, usually we're trying to trade in the direction of the 200 moving average, but we're kind of at that in between stage right now where, you know, we're 70 bars out on the 4-hour chart. We're only 80 bars out on the 1-hour chart. We have pretty much nothing on the on the daily chart. So this is a great opportunity to trade the break of this bull flag and target some of these nice upper levels. Remember, we have pretty decent price projection on this bull flag, 175 pips. If that turns out to be our low at 8,500 basically, then that puts us at about 86.75 for a profit target. So CAD Swiss franc is fantastic looking. We definitely want to get some of this action. So again, these are things I'm watching. We'll talk about how we're going to enter these and how we're going to be able to trade them this week. But you know, these are some fantastic entries that I think are going to give us some great setups. Last but not least, and it's definitely worth noting here, is the Euro Pound. Euro Pound is super fantastic for a couple of reasons. We have to look at the daily chart to really get a good feel for this. We have this monthly pivot that's around 80.35 area, and it's been holding the market down for quite a bit and making a nice little move here. But the Euro Pound appears to be bottoming out like crazy with this low around 78.50. Above this 80.35, we have basically a 100% guarantee for this little tiny movement right here, about 40 pips into that 38% fib. But I think the Euro Pound could very likely head easily up into 8,200, which would be a 150 pip movement. So now it's not quite so small and meaningless. But again, there's 40 pips of basically guaranteed movement above 80.35. But I think we have an excellent chance of 150 pips of making it up into that 61.8, up into that 80, 8190, 8200 area where we have a cluster of pivots and so on. So that's what I'm looking for on Euro Pound, is long above 80.35. If we get any more dips, we definitely want to buy any of these dips we can get to trade it up into that 8200 area. So Euro Pound is looking super, super great for that. So we're probably going to be in a little bit of a holding pattern on Euro Dollar and Pound Dollar for the next couple of days. We have some great trades that we can be extremely active on with Dollar CAD. We have some great trades we can get very active with in Aussie New Zealand and Aussie Yen, and then likewise we have some nice trades we can get pretty active with on Euro Pound and CAD Swiss franc. So I'm looking at all of these. I think we have some really, really good trades ahead. And it's time to bank some of those pips. So that's what we're looking at for the moment. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts or questions about pairs that I did not cover or talk about. So send them over and let's see what you guys have to say about any of the other pairs here. I'm going to get this recording formatted right now, and I'll take any questions or comments right now.